Hello, welcome once again to this episode of the Young and Single series. It's another great time of learning, and I want to begin today with a scripture from Proverbs 6:6. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Today we want to talk about responsibility. In case you are new to this channel, my name is Hannah, and on this channel we share interesting tips and secrets on how young ones can go through the maze of being youthful, being young, and being single. What do I mean? Unmarried and without major responsibility. I'm talking about responsibility today, and I like using this example. It's a word my husband brought alive to me because of the way he taught it. Responsibility was broken into two when he was teaching me. He said, responsibility. Your ability to respond to situations is your level of responsibility. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So when we talk of responsibility, how do you respond to different situations? When we are young, we are growing and learning on a daily basis. Our ability to respond to different situations varies based on the knowledge, based on the capacity and skill we have per time. So how do you respond to freedom? How do you respond to care for yourself? How do you respond to pain? How do you respond to abundance? How do you respond to loss? How do you respond to poverty? How do you respond to wealth? In case you have lived a comfortable life where parents have been available for you, provided all the basic needs of your life, and you have not had to think of earning ever in your life, and suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you are to be responsible for yourself and maybe your siblings, how would you respond? How do you respond to your position that you have per time? You could be a leadership position in school, as a prefect, as a leader of a team. And how do you respond to demotion? Many people, sadly, are not responsible enough in one area or the other because they haven't developed the necessary skills, the necessary capacity to be able to handle situations. It's very important for you to know that as a young person, you are growing. Growth is inevitable. Growth will come whether you prepare for it or not. On a daily basis, age is catching up with you, time is catching up with you. And as the days pile on and as experiences come, you would realize that you will be faced daily with situations that will require responsibility. So what should you do? You must build capacity in different areas intentionally before these situations come. There are certain areas where there's not much you can do. How would you respond in case you lose a parent? You can't tell until you actually do. These are situations that you may not have much control over. All you could do maybe is have knowledge and pray that when that time comes, the Lord will help you through it. But in case of failure, what do? You have prepared so well for your A-level exams and you fail. Suddenly you find out that your classmates are moving ahead of you and you have to repeat. How would you handle? Some get so broken and they can never learn. You find yourself in the university and you are repeated. What do? How do you handle it? Do you bounce back and move on? How do you handle it when in that dating experience, after investing 5 years of your time, you wake up one day and the young man looks you in the eye and says, I don't want you again. I've moved on. Find somebody else. How do you handle a breakup? How do you respond to success? How do you respond to failure? How do you respond to challenging situations? And how do you respond to peaceful situations? It is very important that the ability to respond to things be tested and be trained. One thing you should do, like I mentioned earlier, is build capacity in different areas. So, financially build capacity, mentally build capacity, emotionally build capacity. Start picking out the different situations of life that might meet you and read. Rub minds with other minds. How do they handle situations that come their way? You are in the university and your parents can't pay your fees. I remember I was in my master's when suddenly my dad had delayed in paying my fees for one reason or the other. And I had just a day before the portal closed for me to pay. I found myself in a very confused situation. What do I do? How do I find the money? Daddy would pay if he had that money that day, but he had promised to give it to me a few days later. I remember very well running to one of my mothers in the Lord and telling her that I needed a loan to pay my fees. And she did find the money for me, even though she was so sure I already had money. I was like, wow, it's good to look like somebody who always has money, doesn't it? But she did give me the money and I went to pay the fees. A week later, I got the money and I gave it back to her. That's responsibility. The ability to respond. I could have sat there mopping around, blaming my dad, and I would have lost a whole year because I didn't act responsibly. What do you do when you see a child doing something that is going to endanger his or her life? Would you sit and watch? Would you act? When you build capacity, act accordingly. That's the next thing you do. The initial scripture I read in Proverbs 6:6 told you about the ant. What makes the ant responsible is it acts at the right time. So there's a time to study and there's a time to play. As a student, in your young and single days, maximize the capacity in studying. Get your degrees, as many as you want. Get a good job. Develop a savings culture and develop a budgeting scheme and be able to live your life and plan as a single person how to take care of yourself before you add the responsibility of taking care of a lady and add the responsibility of taking care of children and in-laws and your own parents. Once you have built this capacity, once you have acted accordingly, you'll find out that every situation that meets you, because you have built capacity, it becomes easy for you to be able to do what? Handle it. In life, you will find out that there are many people who have potential. A few people have skill. But one thing that you need to know is employers need people with skill and capacity. But most importantly, responsibility also requires capacity and skill. So it is very, very important that you build capacity in the areas that you haven't built. Practice responsibility. Offer leadership services when people ask for them. Step out into areas you may never have ventured. I know a lady who helped in taking care of my children when they were young. What she was doing unknown to her was building capacity in taking care of children. Within a matter of time, she could handle the children sometimes a little more than I could myself because she spent more time with them. So she could tell me, Mommy, the young girl is hungry. Mommy, the young girl is tired. She had developed that skill so well. What are you doing in the area of your learning? What are you doing in the area of family life? What are you doing in the area of financing to develop capacity? What about challenges? How are you learning to handle challenges? Know that challenges will come. The storms will hit you. When you are young, it looks like everything is okay. Yes, because somebody is taking the shock. Most of your parents are taking that shock that you are not feeling. But very soon when you venture out, when you leave your comfort zone, when independence is fully given to you, you will realize that your parents were taking so many shocks that you never experienced. Will you be able to have capacity and skill that leads to the responsibility for those shocks that may come your way? Young one, today once again, the message has been responsibility. You must be responsible. I must be responsible, and we together must be responsible. For what? For our lives, for our faith, for the environment, for everything that has been committed to us, because one day we're going to account for everything God gave to us. And everyone who builds the capacity of responsibility eventually enjoys peace, enjoys the dividends, because when the time of trouble comes, and it will come, you already have the capacity to handle it. Thank you once again. My name is Hannah. Like the video, share, subscribe, and keep watching the Young and Single series. God bless you.